Draft busts come in all different forms. Whether these players were plagued by injury, didn't have the skill level to translate to the NHL level, or had troubles away from the ice, they all failed to live up the hype in some way. Every team has suffered the effects of a draft bust since 2000. Some were more painful than others in terms of the opportunity costs, but all have hindered their team's chances of success in some form or another. With that in mind, this is every NHL team's worst draft pick since 2000. We will start things off with the Anaheim Ducks. Alexei Smirnov was drafted 12th overall in the 2000 NHL draft. A highly talented Russian center at the time, Smirnov joined the Ducks in the 2002-2003 season, splitting his first couple seasons between the NHL and AHL. He only played in 52 games in the NHL, in which he produced 6 points. He spent the entire 2004-2005 lockout year in the AHL before returning to Russia a season later. Smirnov would then return to North America in the 2006-2007 season, playing in the ECHL, but quickly went back to Russia. He retired in 2015. The Ducks could have drafted Ron Hainsey, Brooks Orpik, Justin Williams, and Nicholas Kronwall. Next, from the Arizona Coyotes, Mark Visitin. Visitin was selected 27th overall in the 2010 NHL draft. He was a complete bust at not only at the NHL level, but also in the AHL level. He played 89 games in the AHL and struggled to just 33 wins. He finally made his NHL debut for the Arizona Coyotes in 2014. He retired in 2017 after playing in Europe for one season. The Coyotes could have selected Charlie Coyle and Justin Falk. Next, from the Boston Bruins, Zach Hamel. Selected 8th overall in the 2007 NHL draft, Hamel was once considered a promising prospect as he was the WHL's top scorer in the 2006-2007 season. Recorded 93 points through 69 games for the Everett Silvertips. However, Hamel wasn't the same player as he was in junior, as he only scored 4 points in 20 games played in the NHL. Hamel is currently playing overseas. The Bruins could have selected Logan Couture, Ryan McDonough, Kevin Shattenkirk, and Max Pacioretty. Next, from the Buffalo Sabres, Marek Zagrapan. Selected 13th overall in the 2005 NHL draft, a class headlined by the likes of Sidney Crosby, Bobby Ryan, and Carey Price. Zagrapan was one of only 3 first-round selections to not play in a single NHL game in the 2005 NHL draft. Zagrapan would spend 3 years playing in the AHL before crossing the pond to play in Europe, in which he is still playing there today. Next, from the Calgary Flames, Brent Krahn. Krahn was selected 9th overall in the 2000 NHL draft, making him the second goalie drafted after Rick DiPietro with the first pick. The Flames hoped they found their starting goalie of the future. He spent 8 seasons in the Flames system without getting into a single game with the Flames. He signed with the Dallas Stars in 2008, where he would see his one and only game of action in the NHL. Krahn retired just a few years later in 2011. The Flames could have drafted Brad Boyles, Ilya Bruskalov, and the great Henrik Lundqvist. Next, from the Carolina Hurricanes, Zach Boychuk. Selected 14th overall in the 2008 NHL draft, the Hurricanes have had less productive first-rounders, but Boychuk's failure to stick in the NHL was compounded by the fact that the Senators chose Erik Karlsson with the very next pick, and several other future stars were on the board. Boychuk is currently playing overseas after producing 30 points in 127 NHL games in 7 seasons with the Hurricanes, Penguins, and Predators. He last suited up in the NHL in January 2015. Next, from the Chicago Blackhawks, Cam Barker. Barker was selected 3rd overall in the 2004 NHL draft. Unfortunately, things didn't quite work out the way Chicago planned. They went on to do great things with little to no help from Barker. Barker would play in 310 games in his NHL career with the Chicago Blackhawks, the Minnesota Wild, the Edmonton Oilers, and the Vancouver Canucks, producing 96 points. He went overseas in the 2013-14 season and retired in 2021. Next, from the Colorado Avalanche, Connor Bleakley. Bleakley was selected 23rd overall in the 2014 NHL draft. Bleakley has not played in a single NHL game as he was with the Colorado Avalanche for 2 seasons before his rights were traded to the Arizona Coyotes. He was then drafted a second time by the St. Louis Blues in the 2016 NHL draft in the 5th round. But he hasn't played more than 60 games for any team since his days in the WHL. He is now playing in the ECHL. The Avalanche could have selected David Pastrnak, Adrian Kempe, and Thatcher Demko. Next, from the Columbus Blue Jackets, Nikita Filatov. Filatov was selected 6th overall in the 2008 NHL draft. Jackets fans at the time thought they had their next superstar, but it didn't go so well, as he played a total of 53 games, producing 14 points in 4 seasons with the Jackets and the Senators. He went back to Russia to play in the KHL in the 2011-2012 season and would eventually retire in 2019. The Jackets could have selected Josh Bailey, Tyler Myers, Erik Karlsson, Jordan Eberle, or John Carlson. Next, from the Dallas Stars, Scott Glennie. Glennie was selected 8th overall in the 2009 NHL draft, but he has only played in just 1 NHL game in his career. He would spend most of it in the AHL and would retire at the end of the 2016-2017 season. Glennie is one of 2 top 10 picks to play in just 1 game or fewer to appear in this video. Just about any player from the first round of the 2009 draft would have been a better selection for the Stars. Next, from the Detroit Red Wings, Thomas McCollum. McCollum was selected with the last pick in the first round of the 2008 NHL draft. Of all the Red Wings' first round picks since 2000, none of them have played fewer games than him. McCollum would only play in 3 NHL games. McCollum has bounced around the AHL and the ECHL during his career, and is currently playing in Europe, but the Red Wings certainly had better options in that draft. The Red Wings could have selected Jacob Markstrom, Roman Josi, or even Jake Allen. Next, from the Edmonton Oilers, Nail Yakupov. The Edmonton Oilers used their 3rd straight first overall pick on Nail Yakupov in the 2012 NHL draft. This marked the 3rd straight time that the Edmonton Oilers had the first overall pick. Yakupov had 17 goals in his rookie season and never got more than 14 in any season after that. In 6 seasons and 350 games with the Oilers, Blues, and Avs, he posted a disappointing 62 goals and 136 points. Yakupov is currently playing in the KHL. Next, from the Florida Panthers, Peter Tichek. Tichek was selected 9th overall in the 2002 NHL draft. The Panthers had 2 top 10 picks in that draft. The miss on Tichek can be somewhat overlooked when you consider their top selection of Jay Bouwmeester, a highly talented Czech prospect who made the jump to North America during his draft year, but unfortunately his game failed to translate to the NHL level. Tichek would only play in 3 NHL games over his short NHL career. He would play most of his career in Europe, and it's where he is still playing today. Next, from the Los Angeles Kings, Colton Teubert. Teubert was selected 13th overall in the 2008 NHL draft. Teubert has never played a single game for the Kings. However, the Canes included him in a trade for Dustin Penner to the Edmonton Oilers in 2011. The former 13th overall pick played in 24 games in his NHL career with the Edmonton Oilers and produced just 1 point. The robust right-handed defenseman retired in 2017 after playing in Germany. Next, from the Minnesota Wild, AJ Thielen. Thielen was drafted 12th overall in the 2004 NHL draft and was a highly talented Michigan State defensive product who wound up being a career ECHL player. He never appeared in a single NHL game and made a grand total of 10 AHL appearances. With back issues and a history of concussions, he retired at the age of 25. Next, from the Montreal Canadiens, Louis LeBlanc. LeBlanc was drafted 18th overall in the 2009 NHL draft, but he never became the center that the Montreal Canadiens were looking for, as he just played 50 games, producing 10 points in his NHL career. He spent most of his career in the AHL and did not overly impress there either. In the 2015-16 season, he went over to Europe and played in 3 different leagues, playing a total of 15 games, registering 5 points. After that season, he announced his retirement from hockey. Next, from the Nashville Predators, Chet Pickard. Pickard was selected 18th overall in the 2008 NHL Draft. It was the only draft in which the Nashville Predators held 2 first-round picks in their history. He's an example of a goalie that the Nashville Predators misjudged. On the outside, there was so much promise about him. He was an excellent performer in junior hockey. He backed up Carey Price with the Tri-City Americans before winning the Canadian Junior Hockey League Goalie of the Year in 2008. Pickard would never play in a single NHL game and would just play in the AHL, ECHL in Europe throughout his career. He retired in 2022. Next, from the New Jersey Devils, Mattias Tedenby. Tedenby was selected 24th overall in the 2008 NHL Draft. He was ranked 3rd amongst European skaters. While he did show signs of offensive flair, his game never rounded into form in 120 games, producing 30 points. Not to mention his defensive game was very poor and the Devils didn't want to wait for that part of his game to come around. After his rookie contract expired, Tedenby ended up making the move back to Sweden and is currently playing in Europe today. Next, from the New York Islanders, Griffin Reinhart. Reinhart was selected 4th overall in the 2012 NHL Draft. The shutdown defenseman has only played 37 games, producing 2 points in his NHL career with the Islanders and Oilers. The only good thing that came out of drafting Reinhart is Peter Chiarelli, who accepted him for Garth Snow in exchange for the 16th and 33rd picks in the 2015 draft. The Islanders then famously selected Matt Barzal and Anthony Beauvillier with that lucky haul. Barzal would go on to win the Calder Trophy in the 2017-18 season. While they're currently glad to have Barzal, that's more on Chiarelli than their draft selection here. Reinhart retired in 2021. The Islanders could have drafted Philip Forsberg, Morgan Riley, Jacob Trouba, and Thomas Hertl. Next, from the New York Rangers, Hugh Jesseman. Jesseman was selected 12th overall in the 2003 NHL Draft. His first pro season was rather mediocre, which was the same case for his next 2 seasons in the Rangers system. He was traded to the Predators in 2008. So after 5 years, Jesseman was basically worth a bag of pucks to the Rangers. He did eventually get into 2 games with the Florida Panthers before he ended up in Europe. To make things worse for the Rangers was that the 2003 draft was one of the strongest in NHL history. The Rangers could have selected Brent Seabrook, Zach Parise, Ryan Getzlaf, Corey Perry, and Patrice Bergeron. Next, from the Ottawa Senators, Brian Lee. Lee was selected 9th overall in the 2005 NHL Draft. This was the year lost to the lockout, so the draft order was determined by a lottery. The Senators were actually good during the time period and were basically gifted the 9th overall pick. Instead of drafting Mark Stahl like most analysts thought they would, the team decided to draft Brian Lee instead. This was clearly the wrong decision, as Lee would play a total of 209 games in his NHL career with the Ottawa Senators in the Tampa Bay Lightning, as he would retire in 2014. Next, from the Philadelphia Flyers, Sam Morin. Morin was drafted 11th overall in the 2013 NHL Draft. Morin would only play in 29 games, producing 1 point, a goal in his NHL career. Injuries kept him from playing, and unfortunately, Morin's playing career would be cut short. He was forced to retire in 2022. Next, from the Pittsburgh Penguins, Angelo Esposito. Angelo Esposito was selected 20th overall in the 2007 NHL Draft. The Penguins were excited to snap him up. Esposito showed regression even before he left the junior ranks, as his point totals decreased every year he spent in the queue. He wasn't a member of the Penguins for long, as they traded him to Atlanta. He wasn't a member of the Penguins for long, as they traded him to the Atlanta Thrashers in 2008. Esposito was a huge disappointment everywhere he played. Esposito made the jump overseas in 2012 and has played in various leagues. He retired in 2016. Next, from the San Jose Sharks, Ty Wishart. Wishart was selected 16th overall in the 2006 NHL Draft. Wishart showed promise as a big-body two-way defenseman in the WHL. The Sharks must have figured they could use his 6'4" frame on their blue line. Wishart didn't play a game in San Jose, but he was a valuable piece in the Sharks' 2008 trade for Dan Boyle. Wishart went on to spend the majority of his time in the AHL, appearing in just 26 games with the New York Islanders and the Tampa Bay Lightning, producing 6 points, before heading to play overseas in 2013. The Sharks could have drafted Claude Giroux, Varlamov, or Nick Foligno. As for the Seattle Kraken, we will be skipping this one. Next, from the St. Louis Blues, Marek Schwartz. Schwartz was selected 17th overall in the 2004 NHL Draft. He would just play in 6 games with the St. Louis Blues, in which he had a save percentage of 0.809 with a 4.32 goals against average. In a 0-2-0 record, he returned to Europe in the 2009-10 season and is still playing in Europe today. The St. Louis Blues could have drafted Mike Green, Travis Zajac, and Corey Schneider. Next, from the Tampa Bay Lightning, Alex Sitov. Sitov was selected 3rd overall in the 2001 NHL Draft. Sitov was an exciting prospect at the time, but it proved to be a massive swing and a miss for the Lightning. He produced just 4 goals and 8 points throughout 63 games during his rookie season and was traded to the Jackets, just 11 games into his second season. With only 37 career points, Sitov owns the 2nd lowest point total for a top 3 selection since 1969, making him one of the biggest draft busts in NHL history. The Lightning could have drafted Mikko Koivu, Dan Hamhuis, and Alex Hemsky. Next, from the Toronto Maple Leafs, Tyler Biggs. Tyler Biggs was selected 22nd overall in the 2011 NHL Draft and has never made an appearance in the NHL. Not only that, but he struggled to even make a minor impact in the AHL. He played in 119 games in the AHL with the Marlies and Penguins and scored a shockingly horrible 17 points. He's performed better in the ECHL, but is that really what you expect from your first round pick? Biggs is looking like a career low-level minor league player as he currently plays in the ECHL. Thankfully, the Leafs have seemed to figure things out in drafting and developing players. The Leafs could have drafted Rickard Rakell, John Gibson, Brendan Saad, or Nikita Kucherov. Next, from the Vancouver Canucks, Patrick White. White was selected 25th overall in the 2007 NHL Draft. White joined the University of Minnesota program after being drafted by the Canucks, but faded quickly after a promising freshman season. His rights were traded away to the Sharks as part of an exchange that brought Christian Ehrenhoff to the Canucks. White's poor play and attitude did not see him make it to the NHL, but he had a career in Europe and retired in 2017. The Canucks could have drafted David Perron or PK Subban. As for the Vegas Golden Knights, we will be skipping this one. Next, from the Washington Capitals, Anton Gustafsson. Gustafsson was selected 21st overall in the 2008 NHL Draft. He would never play a single game in the NHL and only played a single game with the Hershey Bears before returning to Sweden. No real reason for this bust other than failure to step up to the NHL level. He currently plays in Switzerland. Last but not least, from the Winnipeg Jets, Boris Velbik. Velbik was selected 10th overall in the 2004 NHL Draft by the Atlanta Thrashers. Velbik only managed to appear in 80 games over his NHL career, registering 7 points in 210 penalty minutes. The 2009-10 season would be the last time Velbik would see the ice in the NHL. He spent the next few years playing in the AHL until the 2012-2013 season when he decided to finish his career overseas. He retired after the 2016-17 season. So there you have it, every NHL team's worst draft pick since 2000. Let me know what you think of this list in the comments section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.